Some days, it feels like your emotions are the thing no one is allowed to notice. Not the world, not yourself, not even the people you care about. You might laugh at something sad, brush off a pang of anger, or apologize silently for feeling anything too deeply. There's a strange habit you've probably developed over the years: shrinking, dimming, muting. Minimizing your own heart, as if it's too much for the room to handle. And the irony is, no one asked you to do that. You just did it, quietly, patiently, believing it was safer that way. It starts small. A fleeting thought ignored. A sigh swallowed. A tear wiped before anyone could see. Over time, those tiny acts of dismissal build walls inside you, soft at first, then firm, until your emotions feel like intruders in your own life. You've become skilled at pretending the storm inside isn't happening, that the waves of sadness, anger, or fear are optional, like traffic you could simply wait out. But the truth is, they are not optional. They are part of you, insistently present, quietly demanding acknowledgement. Minimizing isn't weakness. In fact, it's often an act of survival. You learn somewhere, maybe in childhood, maybe later, that showing too much could hurt, that vulnerability could be exploited, or that your feelings simply weren't important. And so the habit became automatic. You downplay your pain, your joy, your frustration, your longing. You tell yourself, it's not that bad, I shouldn't feel this way, or someone else has it worse. The problem isn't that you feel, it's that you erase the feeling before it's even allowed to exist. Here's the subtle danger: emotions that are minimized don't vanish. They accumulate quietly in the background, like water under a closed door, pressing, waiting, sometimes spilling over when least expected. The laughter that doesn't reach your eyes. The irritation that makes your chest tight, but is never voiced. The sadness that sneaks in during quiet moments. When emotions are ignored, your body and mind carry them, often in ways that are confusing, exhausting, and isolating. But noticing is the first step to stopping the pattern. To stop minimizing is not to overreact, perform, or overwhelm. It is simply to allow yourself to feel, fully, deeply, without judgment, without apology. To recognize that your anger, sadness, joy, or fear is valid because you are valid. And when you begin acknowledging even the smallest emotional flicker, something remarkable happens. The walls inside your chest soften. The breath comes easier. The storm isn't gone, but it doesn't have to feel like a siege anymore. And there's humor in this, if you can catch it. The ridiculousness of pretending everything is fine when your body is screaming the opposite. The awkward realization that, yes, you've been minimizing your excitement for a promotion, your irritation with a friend, even your joy at a small victory. That awkwardness isn't a failure. It's proof that your emotions are awake, present, and insisting on recognition. Laugh softly at yourself. Let the humor remind you that being human means sometimes being absurd, and that's okay. If these words feel like a safe place, linger. Let them be a small permission slip for your heart. To breathe, to notice, to stop apologizing for existing in full emotional color. You don't need anyone else's approval. You don't need to prove the legitimacy of your feelings. They are yours. They always have been. And when you start treating them as such, you begin the quiet, steady work of reclaiming your inner life from the habit of erasure. It's also worth noticing how minimizing affects connection. When you downplay yourself, you signal to the world that your feelings aren't worth attending to. Others naturally respond to that signal. People mirror the energy you project. If you consistently minimize your grief, your anger, your delight, the world learns to treat those emotions lightly too. Breaking the habit isn't selfish, it's essential. Not only for your own well-being, but for the way you relate to others. When you honor your own feelings, you give permission for others to honor theirs, and relationships become more genuine, more intimate, more alive. And the truth is, it's gradual. You don't switch overnight from silencing your emotions to embracing them fully. The first acknowledgement might be small, noticing your irritation without immediately apologizing, allowing a sigh to linger without shame, naming your joy without softening it. Tiny victories pile up. The muscle of feeling grows stronger. And the more you practice, the easier it becomes to show up emotionally without fear or embarrassment. Your emotions are a compass. They signal when something matters, when boundaries are crossed, when hope appears, when joy is possible. Minimizing them is like ignoring the dashboard lights on a car. You might keep moving, but the signs of what's going on inside are there for a reason. Paying attention, listening, honoring those signals is the first step toward navigating life with clarity, depth, and integrity. If staying here feels safe, linger. Let this be the quiet encouragement your heart needs. There's a freedom in acknowledging the full spectrum of your experience. The sadness that lingers, the anger that rises, the fear that whispers, the joy that surprises. Each acknowledgement is a small liberation, a soft but firm reclaiming of your right to exist fully in your own life. And slowly, you start noticing changes. The tension in your shoulders loosens, the tightness in your chest eases, the internal monologue softens from criticism to curiosity. You may even discover that emotions you thought were inconvenient or overwhelming are not enemies. They are guides, teachers, companions on the journey of being human. And the humor, ever present, reminds you not to take it all too seriously. The absurdity of being a walking, talking bundle of feeling is what makes life alive. Stopping the minimization is not about perfection. You will falter. You will revert to old habits. That's normal. What matters is that you notice and return. You return to your feelings, to your body, to the gentle insistence that they matter. Every sigh aloud, every tear noticed, every smile unsoftened, is a thread woven back into your authentic self. Stay here for a moment. Feel the pulse of your own heart, the rise and fall of your chest, the subtle flickers of emotion that you have long ignored. These are your guides, your signals, your proof of life. Treat them as sacred. Honor them. And in that quiet recognition, something remarkable happens. The world feels less like a place where you have to hide, and more like a space where your emotions, in all their wild, messy beauty, are welcome. Sometimes, the most radical act you can do is to simply stop apologizing to yourself for feeling. Even the tiniest emotion, a flicker of irritation, a pang of sadness, a rush of joy, deserves recognition. And yet, for years, perhaps decades, you've been trained to shrink it, to label it as too much, unnecessary, or dramatic. The first step in reclaiming your emotional life is noticing that those labels were never yours to begin with. They were borrowed from a world that misunderstood the value of fully felt experience. You can take them off now. Acknowledging your feelings doesn't make you fragile. It makes you human. Every time you allow yourself to pause with your sadness without muting it, every time you notice your anger without hiding it, every time you savor joy without minimizing it, you build strength. Strength not in rigidity, not in numbness, but in the courage to inhabit your own heart completely. That's not a small feat, it's revolutionary. There's a subtle humor in realizing how absurd it is to have hidden your own feelings for so long. You might laugh softly at the memory of the countless times you smiled while your chest ached, or the times you shrugged off irritation that had been quietly simmering for hours. That humor isn't mocking. It's a reminder that your heart is resilient, flexible, and capable of moving through the most awkward, clumsy, and messy aspects of being human. And the practical work begins with noticing. Noticing the physical sensations of emotion, the tightening in your stomach, the heat rising in your cheeks, the quickening of your pulse. Noticing the thoughts attached, the judgment, the comparison, the insistence that your feelings shouldn't exist. Naming them without criticism is transformative. Sadness, anger, frustration, joy, they are all signals, all guides, all legitimate. Each acknowledgement loosens the habitual grip of minimization and begins the gentle rebuilding of trust between you and your own heart. It's okay to start small. The first act of honoring an emotion might be letting a tear fall without brushing it away. The next might be speaking your frustration softly instead of swallowing it. Maybe it's journaling the swirl of feelings without judgment, or admitting to a trusted friend that something hurt, without immediately apologizing for taking up space. Each act is a thread weaving back the tapestry of your emotional life, a quiet reclaiming of the right to exist fully. And connection plays a role too. The more you honor your own feelings, the more authentic your interactions with others become. When you stop minimizing internally, you stop minimizing externally. People sense authenticity, even in subtle ways. The laughter that reaches your eyes, the vulnerability that doesn't seek perfection, the small honesty in your voice. These become the bridges that strengthen relationships, deepen intimacy, and foster mutual respect. Humor, again, sneaks in here. Perhaps it's the ridiculous self-awareness that you've spent years apologizing for being alive, or the way your heart feels simultaneously heavy and absurdly expressive. Laughing softly at this absurdity isn't trivializing your pain. It's proof that even the weightiest emotions can coexist with lightness. That balance, tender and human, is what makes life rich and survivable. If these words feel like a safe space, linger. Let them sink in. Recognize that allowing your feelings doesn't make you weak, it makes you whole. There's a freedom in acknowledging the full spectrum of your experience, a soft liberation that loosens tension and opens space for clarity. And as clarity grows, so does the ability to respond to life, rather than simply reacting or hiding. Gradually, patterns emerge. You notice when you default to minimizing, when the old habits rise like automatic reflexes. And each time you catch them, you have a choice. Continue the automatic dismissal, or pause, breathe, and fully inhabit your emotional truth. Every time you choose the latter, the muscle of self-compassion grows stronger. The walls you built to protect yourself gently recede, replaced by a quiet confidence that your feelings are valid, your presence is valid, and your inner life is worthy of attention. And in these moments, the absurdity of previous minimization becomes almost funny. The idea that for so long you thought your emotions were too much or unworthy seems almost theatrical in hindsight. Yet it matters because recognizing it now is proof of growth, awareness, and the courage to inhabit your own experience unapologetically. Staying present with your emotions also teaches patience. Some feelings are stubborn. Some linger. Some resurface repeatedly, as if testing whether you've truly learned to notice. That's normal. Healing, self-recognition, and emotional acceptance are not linear. They are a messy, winding path, full of loops, surprises, and pauses. Each act of honoring a feeling, however small, is a step forward on that path. If these words feel like a place to pause, to breathe, to permit yourself existence in full emotional color, stay here. Let them remind you that every small act of self-validation is meaningful. Every time you stop minimizing, even in tiny, almost invisible ways, you reclaim a piece of yourself. And those pieces accumulate, quietly, steadily, into a whole, resilient, deeply human being. Eventually, you notice a shift. The chest tightness loosens. The internal criticism softens. Emotions no longer feel like intruders but like companions. Messy, demanding, beautiful companions who guide you toward clarity, intimacy, and self-respect. The habit of minimization loses its power because you've cultivated the courage to see and honor your own feelings, consistently, gently, and with humor. And in that space, life begins to feel more vibrant. Relationships feel richer. Your own presence feels steadier. You laugh more easily, cry more openly, and navigate the world with a newfound respect for the complexity of your inner life. The subtle absurdities of human emotion, how intense, unpredictable, and at times ridiculous it all can be, become reminders that being alive is inherently messy, wonderfully imperfect, and deeply meaningful. If staying here feels safe, linger. Let your heart expand into this knowledge, that emotions, in all their forms, are your allies, your guides, your proof of being fully human. That acknowledging them is not indulgence, it is survival, authenticity, and courage. And that with each moment of noticing, each small acknowledgement, each pause to breathe and feel, you are reclaiming the right to exist fully in your own life. There's a quiet moment, often at the end of a day when the world softens and the noise fades, when you can feel the weight of all the emotions you've tried to push aside. They've been waiting patiently, like guests at the door you forgot to open. And here's the strange miracle. The moment you stop apologizing for their existence, stop brushing them under the rug, stop pretending they aren't real, you notice something extraordinary. They don't overwhelm. They don't crash through the walls of your life. They arrive as companions, as teachers, as subtle guides pointing toward clarity, depth, and understanding. It's almost absurd when you think about it. How many years were spent shrinking? How many tears swallowed? How many joys softened? How many frustrations hidden under polite smiles? And yet, here you are, still alive, still noticing, still breathing. The sheer resilience of your heart is remarkable. And now, the act of finally honoring your feelings, fully, unapologetically, is transformative. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering that you were whole all along. And in that remembrance, humor appears again softly. The ridiculousness of thinking you ever had to apologize for existing in your own skin. The way your chest feels lighter when a laugh escapes you without qualification. The absurdity of thinking that the world could ever be too much for the emotions that built it, and yet you survived. Each laugh, each sigh, each tear becomes a note in a symphony of self-recognition, played quietly but profoundly within the chambers of your own heart. If you stay here a moment, truly stay, you notice the subtle liberation. You realize that emotions are not burdens, they are signals, guides, companions. They are the colors of your life, sometimes dark, sometimes bright, but always essential. When you honor them, you no longer bend yourself to meet external expectations. You no longer apologize for feeling. And in that refusal to diminish yourself, the world begins to shift, not because it changes, but because you do. Your heart learns a new rhythm, one that listens to sadness without shame, joy without restraint, anger without guilt, fear without judgment. Each pulse is a permission slip to feel fully. Each breath is a small victory against the habit of erasure. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, a new strength emerges. Not the kind forged in denial or toughness, but the kind built from presence, awareness, and self-compassion. And when you recognize this, the relief is palpable. The tightening in your chest loosens. The shadow of self-criticism fades. You are alive in a more vivid, profound way. The storms inside you no longer feel like enemies, but teachers, showing you the contours of your own heart, the depth of your own capacity, and the beauty of simply being present with yourself. Stay here. Let the moment stretch. Let the knowledge seep in that minimizing is no longer a necessity, that your emotions are not intruders but companions, that your heart is not too much. It is exactly enough. You have been surviving, enduring, and now you are living fully and authentically. The world may still ask for quiet compliance, still whisper that you should shrink. But you have learned something stronger, the courage to exist in full feeling, to honor every flicker and wave of your internal world. And perhaps the most beautiful revelation of all is that honoring your emotions doesn't just free you, it frees everything around you. Relationships feel deeper, laughter feels truer, and your presence becomes a quiet invitation for others to do the same. By refusing to minimize, you are modeling a world where feeling is not a flaw, where human hearts can be messy, vibrant, tender, and entirely valid. So breathe. Feel. Let your emotions move through you like wind over water, sometimes gentle, sometimes turbulent, but always alive, always real, always yours. And in that flow there is peace. In that flow there is wisdom. In that flow there is liberation. Stay here. Let your heart open a little wider. Let your emotions, long silenced, speak their truth. You are enough. Your feelings are enough. Your presence in this world is enough. And in this quiet, tender acknowledgement, the healing begins softly, irrevocably, beautifully.